there are probably two directions to take this. I'll take this, the kid version. It's if you like you have a 5-year-old. It's one thing to just tell your 5-year-old to do a thing. Unless you explain to your 5-year-old why they're doing it and how to do it, it doesn't really matter. You have to provide the context or they don't learn from it. And it's the exact same, which is why in the world of vibe coding, which 6 months ago was like a 4-letter word, and now it's becoming a little bit more okay, at least my dev team thinks so. You can't just say, go build this thing. You have to be able to give it the precise, nuanced, every single step along the way, which is why if you're a e-com founder or a SaaS founder or whatever, and you're trying to vibe code your own CRM, that's probably a disaster because you don't understand the underlying nuance of that entire system. But you taking a product that you already have and creating a new version of it because you intimately understand how that product works and exactly what is good and bad and what features are good and bad based on feedback from customers on all these things, that's an entirely different scenario. I'm Adam Callinan. My current company is a profitability operating system that came out of my almost decade-long experience building an e-commerce brand from 0 to 60 million in total sales and in private equity exit.
When I was preparing for this meeting, I noticed one of the things that you talked about. I mean, also, Adam's been on Shark Tank. He's been in the entrepreneur media. Well, first off, very impressed by your career. So I'll just get the glazing out of the way. Very impressed by your career. The one thing I did notice in like your materials and what kind of the theme of like what you've talked about, like I guess like your podcast DNA, like what is this guy like repeating over and over again is the concept of how like operational pain creates good product taste. Could you expound on the concept of operational pain? Because I think it's it's a good insight into your intro statement where you just said, I've been doing e-commerce for a long time. I've been operating e-commerce businesses, and this product came out of that. Maybe you could tie those two things together to get started.
I will tie those together and I'll add an important layer to that construct. And that is, I think first, and I'm going to say this and then correct the fact that I'm not a total masochist, but I think first, doing physical things that are uncomfortable and painful creates this amazing outcome. And that is going and doing really hard thing. And this is, your baseline is important. My baseline is different than yours versus the next person. Going and doing hard physical things creates an opportunity to build durability and resilience and become anti-fragile. The result of which is that it gives us the ability to be more resilient and durable through all of that pain that comes with startups and entrepreneurship. Now, I got there from experiencing that pain and not being durable and resilient enough and having like full meltdown when I should not have been having full meltdown, like when things were going great. I think it's what I do end up talking a lot about and things that I've massively changed in my life that have made a really big impact are going and doing hard physical things, particularly in the outdoors. I live in Montana, so I do a lot of hard things out in the woods. Makes me personally a dramatically better business operator and husband and dad and human in general.
Yeah, the term anti-fragile is used a lot in business circles. So fragility is like as soon as like the worst case scenario happens to a fragile object, it breaks. And how would you describe like the antithesis of fragility to the listener, and maybe like what attributes make that thing anti-fragile?
It's when something happens to us, and this is a completely human reaction from the second you come out, mom, these are the way that we emotionally react to things. Something bad happens, we generally like I just said, emotionally react. And when I was more fragile, I would have this dramatic emotional response to something. And then an hour later, look back at it and go, that actually wasn't that bad. So what was it at the beginning that gave me that emotional response? Because it like mentally shuts you down for a while. The kind of extreme version of this, without getting too deep into the pop culture psychology, but like when we have words that like actually people take as physical harm is a completely fragile emotional response to something that didn't physically harm you. So that's just a fragile state. The opposite of which is that it is a much more stoic, emotionally balanced response of you see the thing, you see it happening, you recognize what's going on. It doesn't mean that you don't have any emotional response, you just catch it quickly. And that's a practice. That's a thing that you can develop over time. That's a lot of what meditation is about. But again, when you go and do really hard physical things, it resets your perspective on what hard looks like. So then that thing happens and you just respond to it differently because it doesn't look as hard as that thing that you just went and did. And it's this amazing reframing.
Yeah, the hard thing that I did was raised and still in the process. Not this isn't past tense, but in the process of raising, 3 young kids and going through like the sleep deprivation and going not remembering the last time you had a good night's sleep, and then when you start getting sleep, like how much you appreciate it, and the emotional like whiplash, and getting a tiny human to survive and hopefully hit their developmental milestones where they're a little bit more reasonable. My daughter right now is really all gas, no brakes when she doesn't get what she wants. But then like hearing someone that like hasn't gone through that experience yet, just saying, "Oh man, I didn't sleep super well last night. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do well today." And it's like I've had to like show up for years now with like mediocre sleep. Like I stopped wearing my Apple Watch going to sleep because I'm like, my sleep score, I know what the sleep score is going to be. I don't need that data. And also just it, it is like so physically hard to like raise kids that now like my whole response to like stressful work environments when like, I don't know, like a guy that's old enough to be my grandfather is throwing a tantrum at work. That's my coworker. It really is like, well, I could just be getting, ordered around by like a 18-month-old. So, I mean, it could be worse. I could be getting like pooped on right now. So this is just interpersonal stuff. Like I just listen to that person, work your way through it. And I think like one of the characteristics of like an anti-fragile thing or individual is, and it's like how in the book, if anyone hasn't read the book, I think it's interesting, like from Nassim Taleb, like about anti-fragility, is he's talking about it from like the finance and like markets perspective of
Mm.
he says like I could count on my hands, and I'm paraphrasing heavily, it's been a while since I read the book, but like what stuck with me is like I could count on like my hands all the life events that like made me wealthy, like these big liquidity events, and it all came from capitalizing on a crisis in the market and like being ready to capitalize. And so it's like when you try to destroy something anti-fragile, you actually just make it better because it takes the feedback and is able to like act on the opportunity created by it. And so what I when I think about like maybe like the if I were to say like how would you describe an anti-fragile person is like someone that can take very critical feedback and not react emotionally to it and just objectively observe like, oh, why did they like call me that, or like why did they give me that feedback, and they're able to like process, internalize it, and then apply the feedback and get better. That's how I describe
Yeah,
someone like that. Like it's just like like there's no ego. It's just, oh, it's just data. Okay, cool. Oh, I'm
exactly.
sorry I hurt your feelings. Move forward.
It's an entirely stoic response. It's a non-emotional response. And that gets easier. And you just gave a great explanation with little kids. I have little kids too.
Yeah.
That resets your perspective. And it's all about perspective. The super fragile, their perspective is different than your perspective. My friend who was born in a cardboard box in Baghdad with no arms and no legs and left to die in a park and grew up in an orphanage and then got adopted and is the happiest human being I've ever met. His perspective is different than my perspective, but I seek that out. Like I want to be around that guy as much as possible because what is hard for him and is hard for me are two entirely different things. I want to soak up as much of that perspective as possible. They're just entirely different perspectives.
So taking that into account, would you have been able to start your current company and work on like your current product if you didn't have all that e-commerce experience? Do you feel like you would have been able to make the same decisions?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No way.
So tell me more.
Yeah. This company was an entirely organic outcome. And the only reason it makes sense for me to do it and build it the way that I'm building it was because I went and tested a need for it after the Bottle Keeper experience. And I only had the experience to go and build something like this in the extremely unique way it's being built because I was the CEO of a company with no employees doing $8 million a year. And I literally did everything. I did all the customer service. I did all the paid ads. I built the campaigns. I spent millions of dollars in ad budget. I did the creative. I built the website. My cousin and he was my partner. He did most of the finance and like shipping and fulfillment and things like that. But I had to do those things. We didn't want to raise money. I had to do those from the perspective of it had to be profitable. So I built systems for myself as the CEO doing those things to answer questions that I couldn't find anywhere. And it's that then which took the company into tens of millions and beyond that into acquisition. Being able to see that from start to finish and run this system that evolved with the company. I just took that system a year after the acquisition. I got super bored and went to companies I had invested in and asked if I could help and realized they had the same problems. They just didn't have the system to help solve the problem and answer the question. So I just rebuilt what I had already done in them and it completely changed them.
Yeah, I'm going to quote David Senra. I just discovered Founders Podcast, and it's like I'm like my wife with her true crime podcast. Like I just binge those things. It's entertainment. It's great. Anyone like that want to actually like see like the realities of, like building something. I think Founders Podcast is great. But David like talked about, and I'm like going through like the founder of Rolex, which is also an incredible like story. He goes into these like rare like non-English biographies that you can't find. Like maybe like the Rolex founder, like this bio had like 1,000 copies made before, and this guy's been dead for 70 years. And David's insight was like, hey, this is why business biographies beat business books every time, because you realize that all of these founders of companies are just taking it day by day. Like they're just grasping in the fog and they're just trying to solve the next problem and the next one and the next one. And they're not like overly planning. I mean, they're really great planners, but they don't depend on plans. I think there's the Eisenhower quote of like planning's useful, plans are useless, planning's useful. You know, thinking about the problem's good, but like thinking that creating like a written plan is going to help you be successful instead of just like starting is like what I'm hearing. Cause like in my experience of doing like the podcast, I think about my whole operational process and like showing it to people. And I'm like, oh, this was like the culmination of just compounding efficiencies over time that like it's comprehensive to me, but like someone else couldn't like implement it without like knowing why every piece was in that process. Um, let's talk about e-commerce. Like one of the things that I love about your public materials, it also makes it really easy to do like background research on you with AIs because you have a lot of work out there, which I think also is maybe a lesson people could learn is like share your work, because one day you're gonna be on a podcast and the host can just look you up through Perplexity and get pull quotes and everything. But one of those things is the insight behind your like your product that says that like like people don't need more dashboards, they need like decision clarity. Can you kind of walk me through maybe the operational pains that you went through to like get to that insight and like how that applied to like maybe e-commerce? Like maybe walk me through a time, like an origin story of this kind of design philosophy for your product.
Yeah. Early on, if we look backwards at the timeline within Bottle Keeper, we really launched in early 2014. We technically started in 2013, but didn't get moved until 14. And in the summer, about August of that year, Facebook launched their video ad platform, which was lucky. Timing is generally one of those things that is lucky, and you don't know it's usually lucky until you look back at it. Although I think we're in a very lucky period right now. Side note. And what happened is I was spending money on Facebook and I was able to shoot a video of our product in action, which you had to see it moving. And I didn't know that. And the thing exploded. and our revenue went from 2,000 a month to 40 to 60 to 80 to 150. Like we sold out a product and we just chased that for years. So it got, but so where I started needing, at that point, I didn't have systems because I didn't need them. I didn't have analytics systems. We were literally just like chasing at that point. We were on like WordPress with WooCommerce. That was in the early Shopify days. We did end up on Shopify a couple of years later, but as that started to change in 2016, 17, I saw CPMs going up and I saw returns coming down. And we were at the point where we needed to hire our first team member. And so we started building we started writing math in spreadsheets internally because I saw that I was spending ad dollars and I was just arbitrarily making the number up. And I didn't really know how, and because for the first 3 years, we could literally not spend it fast enough. And as that started to tighten, which anybody that was marketing paid ads during the mid to late 2010s saw this, felt it. As that started to change, I needed to get a much better handle on the decisions that I was making around what to spend, how much to spend, where to spend it, how it needed to return in order for us to be profitable, because we had to be profitable. And what happened if we ran a sale, or what happened if I increased the prices, which is a thing that we did really aggressively, increase prices, that is. And then as we hired people, we started hiring a couple of people. How was I going to ensure that our customer acquisition and revenue was built in a way that could pay for those people so we weren't just like spending into a hole? Okay.
Yeah. So like what I'm hearing is that because yeah, it gets to the point where, and I see this a lot. I mean, it's a typical like founder stuff where like it's hard to make frameworks based off of like the founder, because a lot of it is the founder just willing to throw themselves into the problem and solve problems every day. And you develop this intuition and like muscles and like heuristics around making decisions where like you don't need to do like so much rigor to like buy ads. Like you kind of just like through taste, you have like your brain's automatically like spotting patterns and making decisions. But like the business won't grow if the founder doesn't like delegate that task. And what that used to look like, so I'm like I'm a designer, and I actually went back to design from product management as soon as I like Claude Sonnet 3.5 and like doing a year of product management with Claude and just being like, wow, this job got really easy. That's scary, but at the same time, it's like, oh, now as a designer, I can be more strategic because this took time to like do strategic work and meet your obligations as a designer. So I'm like, I'm going back to design. And because one of the fun challenges pre-AI was you had to like decide when designing features, like, is this a problem that could be solved algorithmically through like machine learning, or is this a problem that could be solved through heuristics? And what the UX of a heuristic based UX usually is like form input design, canvas design, like canvas UIs, like something that like matches the mental model to like help remove friction from the user, like make decisions. But then that looks like talking to a subject matter expert and trying to like extract the mental model out of their head through like interviewing. And you have to be really good at this to like extract like, okay, what's your mental model? Like what are like the nouns that you use to, and like, what is the cardinality, like the relationships between those nouns in your head? And then like you're reverse engineering someone's heuristics, and that's just that person's. It could be different across the whole industry, market segments. And you do like a super long dev cycle to try to experiment with like that heuristic based solution. Now with AI, you can monetize your heuristics because AI could just interview you. So would you say that like you started this company because you like realized like, oh, I could take what's in my head and I can have AI like help me create the algorithmic version of what was in my brain? Like, I don't know how old your company is, but like I feel like
Yeah.
that's the insight here is like, oh, AI is really good at like handling mental models and like programmatically like executing heuristic based problems. Is that what maybe your insight was? Or
Early on, we've been around for about 3 years. So if you look back at that AI time cycles, that was pretty early on.
yeah,
That might have been pre OpenAI launching like a really functional model.
Yeah.
I built the thing because I had to, because I had companies that were using it and it dramatically impacted their net profit outcomes. Just because it gave them answers to questions that they either didn't know to ask or were too complicated to address. So they just left them unaddressed and it created these big holes in their companies. It's this intersection of the finance and marketing where everything gets lost because those two different silos speak different languages.
Hmm.
And that's what we were good at Bottlekeeper because we controlled it entirely ourselves. So I built it under that, appreciating the math that it took to do that because we had written it. I understood the math very deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And then as AI started to happen, it was crystal clear to me at the time that this was going to be a big thing, but I was really careful. I'm still today on where and how we use AI within Pentane. Where it is now being used, which is right now is a beta system. So depending on when this podcast comes out, it won't likely be anymore, is taking my mental models and frameworks around profitability and decision making inside of a company and using that within an AI to provide guidance while not allowing the AI to do math and create its own equations. Because it can do math really well, but it's freaking awful at creating the equations if they're not entirely logical. And these aren't like logical,
Yeah.
MBA style equations. So we need to provide the math and the outcomes, but using the AI to use my mental framework, replicate my brain and how I would answer the question for that ecom business.
Yeah. Studying like how agents work and like skills, like just solving my own problems, just out of necessity on like the podcast is like you don't want the you don't want the AI to compose things because AI you can't send AI to jail or yeah, it's like it doesn't automate responsibility, and that's like how people misusing it. They're using it for tasks that like no, it's your responsibility. Like it's your call. You can't be delegating your thinking or like the composition of original thought or like your perspective. Like like what you should be doing is giving it context and clear parameters of like this is the equation that we're going to be using. This is the framework we're going to be using. And then the the unlock with AI is that you're giving it the ability to you're giving it the tools and the skill files. Like what I'm trying to like what I learned about like AI is that recently is that if you just look at it through the lens of it's designed after how the human brain works, you have the brain's already compartmentalized a lot of skills, right? Like project management, layout design, typography design. I'm just using like designer examples here or like requirements gathering or discovery. Like we've already compartmentalized these skills and depending on how good the orchestrator is, which is like you in the past, right? Is like what sequence to like do a certain skill to like solve a problem and like experienced people are really good at like going into the library and pulling the skills. And so with AI, it's creating like an orchestration agent, which is what I do with the podcast. I have like a grooming agent that like reviews like the production backlog. But then when it sees like a true or false like situation, it's like, okay, in this scenario, go to this skill file. This is what you do in this skill file when you see it. And that mental model has really helped me like understand like, oh, okay, what do I usually do manually in this scenario? Okay, like this is what I would do. And then like I break out my mental model around it. And then like the AI is just really good at like reasoning like, oh, okay, like here's like the specific, like you're just writing SOP docs to the AI. I probably could just said that. I buried the lead. But yeah, it's almost like part of the product experience or the value proposition is like the AI like skill files, like the SOPs, like, oh, like we already had like along with like the web 2.0 CRUD interfaces where you can update records and look at tables, you're also getting our years of experience codified for AI to like go execute against. I'll stop, period.
It's like there are probably two directions to take this. I'll take the kid version. It's if you like you have a 5-year-old. It's one thing to just tell your 5-year-old to do a thing. Unless you explain to your 5-year-old why they're doing it and how to do it, it doesn't really matter. You have to provide the context or they don't learn from it. And it's the exact same, which is why in the world of vibe coding, which 6 months ago was like a 4-letter word, and now it's becoming a little bit more okay. At least my dev team thinks so. You can't just say, go build this thing. You have to be able to give it the precise nuance to every single step along the way, which is why if you're a ecom founder or a SaaS founder or whatever, and you're trying to vibe code your own CRM, that's probably a disaster because you don't understand the underlying nuance of that entire system. But having them, you taking a product that you already have and creating a new version of it because you intimately understand how that product works and exactly what is good and bad and what features are good and bad based on feedback from customers, all of these things, that's an entirely different scenario because you have that context and you can provide the context.
Yeah, and I talked with a friend who is an engineering manager at Meta just to talk shop about it because like around like New Year's of like we were had like at New Year's dinner that that was 3 months ago roughly from like this recording. And so in the course of 3 months, he went from I'm worried, Claude's getting pretty good, to I'm not worried. And what he said, and I'll keep my source anonymous just so that I don't get sued or whatever.
Good.
But it's
Yeah.
it's like like everyone started out with like all the product leaders and design leaders being like, oh, designers and PMs should be pushing code. They should be like vibe coding prototypes. And within like late January, they immediately rolled that back. They're like, this is not a good use of their time.
Yeah.
Like like the answer of like AI, at least for like the Meta leadership, was we don't need more bad engineers or we don't need more bad designers. Like we have engineers for a reason. We have designers for a reason. Like PMs shouldn't be making like full spending their time doing full prototypes when they should be like doing financial models or like market research or talking to customers. Like they should be talking to customers so much that they don't have time to do that. Like it's the like what my engineering like friend realized is that the jobs aren't going away, but like the game that could be played has gotten a lot bigger. It's like, okay, cool. Like we're actually getting through tech debt. Great. And the line that really got me was he just said like code was already 20% of what we were doing anyways. And now it's just getting more compressed. So like the real bottleneck now is designers and PMs because you have to like big part of the job is feeding the beast and like having stuff ready for engineering to go. And now that engineering is moving faster, they need to figure out how to use AI to like feed the beast and like actually come to certainty about designs faster so that the engineers aren't idle. They shouldn't be like learning how to code. They should be learning, hey, how do I explore a bunch of different concepts? How do I use my heuristics to like identify signal faster? And at the end of the day, and this comes from Brian Donahue, who's the VP of product at Intercom. When he was on the show, he just said, ironically, AI has actually put pressure on non-technical people to like become more technical because the coding language is English now, like in normal natural language syntax, you still have to program the thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It makes, again, the reality is it still needs the context. It still needs the backbone and all the pieces. And you still need to know when it's wrong. And that's a huge problem when you're a non-coder, you're having it doing math and you don't really understand the math. You can't look at the output and tell whether it's right or wrong. And let's be honest that Meta's problems and challenges are very unique because Meta is ginormous.
Yeah.
Intercom, not a small company. Yeah, I wouldn't exactly call them a startup these days. Like their challenges are entirely different.
Yeah.
As a small growing company, I've always been frustrated inside of Pentane because there has been nothing I could do to make it go faster. I can't work harder to make it go faster. And that this is the first company I've ever been in where that's the case. And it's because I'm not a developer. And that's different now. And at the beginning, it was different, but it was clunky and it was super error prone, security risk intense, dangerous because I understand development a little bit enough to be dangerous, but I was building things in Cursor a year ago and I was able to create some things that I would have paid tens of thousands of dollars in development fees to do, but they weren't consumer facing. They weren't super, exposed to the elements. Now I just recreated our entire platform in 3 days and my dev teams now is going, holy hell, this is incredible. They're fully in support of it. So now it's like, I'll go test it with clients in a safe environment and then hand it to them to fix, to build, to fix the spaghetti in the back end. So I'm able to go and test because I can now do it. I can work harder and make it go faster. I'm able to
Mm.
test stuff now. I mean, it's unreal how that has changed in the last really like last 3 months.
Yeah, I've been playing around with, I think like Dark Horse, ironically, is VS Code and like the Copilot license. I've been playing with that. And the difference between that and a Figma Make or a Lovable is that it's VS Code. It has all this training data from like GitHub, and it like automatically tests and recommends regression testing. And so it's not, you don't have to ask it to run stress smoke tests for you with what you're doing. Like it can plan like automated testing into the workflow so that you can that go from like idea to something that feels real that you can show to customers and test. And I think that's a real important nuance that you brought up. Like the biggest blocker is like belief in a team. If the team doesn't believe in it, like the engineers will like hedge on their estimates because they're like, I don't want to work on this.
Sure.
So I'm just going to try to, I'll use the contractor math and try to discourage the PM or the founder with this is going to take a long time. It's going to be really hard. No, if they believed in it, they would figure out a way to do it faster. But being able to have a working prototype of, hey, this is what it looks like. Here's some like video clips of me like showing it to people, and those people being like, when are you going to release this? Like, when can I have this? That I think is like a totally new like opportunity for like founders, entrepreneurs, like product managers, where you're not like trying to be like, oh, I'm going to like ship this to production and I'm going to be the one that's on call when it breaks.
Cool.
It's like engineers. I made this thing. Has some pretty crazy UI like interactions that like used to be like really hard to do, and people want to pay for this. And then the engineers, okay, cool, I'm on board now. I think that's like the good use of like vibe coding is like when you're trying to figure out, hey, how do you measure desire? It's someone being like, holy shit, this is cool. Oh my God, this is cool. Like, when are you going to have this?
You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm experiencing literally right now. I
Yeah.
showed the first version of this entirely re-engineered product to customer yesterday, and that was a response. Holy shit, this is so much better. How can I have this now? And the reality is because of the way that we built Pentane as this like safe underlying financial layer that does all the math and holds all the secrets, I just had our engineers expose endpoints that I can hit for specific data. And so it is actually a live functioning system that lives in
Yeah.
a safe space. So I can populate one for 5 companies to beta test in a real live functioning environment. That's not a production environment, if that makes sense. Well to you.
Yeah. It's a
So
playground.
it's
Yeah.
incredible. Like it's like a playground environment with their real data. It's unreal.
Yeah, I did a demo once, and it was like last minute, but like I pulled their data into the prototype and then sent them the link, and they're just like, "Are these my vendors?" Yeah, this is what I'm talking about. Like, wait, like this? Yeah, like, this is what I've been asking for this whole time. And like an insight like that, it would take too long, or like the opportunity to like it's like catching a wave and like surfing. Like the amount of like work you have to do to like get to that level of like fidelity, like simulation, to get that level of like feedback from the client.
Yeah.
Like you either had to have a ton of headcount, or you had to be a really, really good like prototyper and move fast and meet your other commitments. And so now I'm like, I don't think like the job like really changes. It's just like the strategies that are available. It just unlocks like new strategies. I think that's just my takeaway from this whole AI thing is like, oh, that used to be too hard to do. And now it's like, what's stopping DoorDash from vertically integrating and creating restaurant management software now?
Yeah. I think a really important point, which is going to take us back a little bit in this conversation, is that you don't I don't know what to tell the AI to do unless I have the last 2.5 years of breaking it and screwing it up. And the iterative component from taking this massive spreadsheet, which is what this started as, that I had now proven out in 3 companies at the very beginning, and go into a dev shop and saying, make this software. Like that's it, literally. Here's 50 grand. I want MVP prototype version of software that I can put in front of a company. And they did that based on the spreadsheet. It was way better than the spreadsheets, and it made perfect sense to me, and it made no sense to anybody else. So I had to handhold the hell out of anybody coming through this system because it wasn't user friendly at all. It was very functional. And that's what I wanted. I wanted first functional, then we'll make it user friendly. And then a year later, we launched V2. It took 9 months to build. V2 was light years ahead of V1. But guess what? Still not super user friendly. Still not great. It's way better, but not great. And now 3 months after effectively like OpenClaw comes to life, which dramatically opens my aperture from being able to use that natural language to build things in a structured environment. I recreated a version of it based on all that 2 years of feedback, 2.5 years of feedback from customers of what they see and what they need and what they want. Build a version of it that now they're going, shit, that's cool. Yes, can we have that right now? I'll test beta, sign a thing, whatever. Yeah, I want that right now. The speed is just unreal how different it is.
Yeah. There's a maxim that I live by that I think really covers this is like really all you are is the sum of all your experiences.
100%.
And so like why is like travel an investment is like, it goes back to doing something that's hard is like go to a place where you don't speak the language and like try to navigate going around there. Like Christopher Nolan was really famous for this, where he wouldn't plan vacations. He would just take his kids and his wife and just be like, we're just going to airdrop into the city and we're going to figure out how to like ask people for directions and like where the food is. Cause it's like it's the practice of just throwing yourself into the problem space and not overthinking it, builds resilience. But also like you build like your mental model of like, oh, that's interesting. So like in Italy, they don't all own houses. Like families live in apartments, which like unlocked for me, like, hey, I should not be trying to like buy like a single family home despite what everyone's pushing me. Like, no, like you should go get it. Like, why are you getting a condo? Get a single family home. And it's like, well, these people in Italy seem fine. And it's just not financially, doesn't make sense. Of course I want to get into a single family home one day, but it's like that experience gave me like the taste and perspective to be like, I'm going to hold out just a little bit longer. And it ended up working out fine for me. You probably like, okay, so you were in WordPress WooCommerce, like you're back, like you've experimented with that. I'm assuming you've tried like, WordPress development and like took PHP courses, like how do I do this myself? Like I did that too. And I even tried before, and this was like back when AI was around, but like it wasn't good. And I was like, oh, I want to learn how to do React. I want to submit my own PRs. And I tried getting a course on React, and I understood like how to read a React project and like how it worked. But the takeaway was, well, I mean, I don't really believe in waste of time. Like this is like the tuition you pay, but like the takeaway was like, I'm never gonna be able to spend time enough on this to like be good enough to reliably do this at a fast speed. And I just thought like, well, I guess I'll just never do this again. And
I
then,
had the exact same experience.
yeah,
This is not a good investment of time and bandwidth. I need to not pretend that I'm going to become a professional developer. At the very beginning of Benting, because I was so frustrated with the fact I couldn't work harder and make it go faster.
but as soon as like Cloud Code came around, I'm sure you felt the same way. I was like, man, I'm really glad I learned how to code.
Yeah, I learned enough to understand the underlying structure and themes. And to go back to your DoorDash point, the reality is DoorDash probably can spin up that vertical, but only because they've spent the last 15 years with the people at the top of that company and probably in the middle chewing on glass, almost failing over and over to get the product to where it is today. That's the only reason they could now easily probably go and spin up that vertical, because they have that iterative experience.
Yeah, and you said it took $50,000 for one prototype. Like you got one shot.
Yeah.
$50,000 for one shot, and then V2 9 months to get do another shot. Like so that's like the feedback cycle is so long. Like that's why like usually you just run out of runway, right? And that's probably why you've had to be like so like lean in your businesses. And maybe that's another episode to talk more about like running a lean operation. But now you've had like 3 years of just listening to like, oh man, that idea would be cool, but we're still building V2. Oh yeah, like what if we did this idea? Okay, it goes in the backlog, and now you're just like, cool, let's test the idea out. Let's make a prototype.
There are things I had on. I did this internal experiment. I put a dry erase board up here on my Montana side, and took a video. It was like an hour-long video going through my entire vision for like from now to 3 years from now, which is this big, massive, hairy thing. And what I thought was going to take 18 months to get, I built in a weekend in 3 weeks ago. Like, we now have product that I built using AI, different versions of AI, that we were testing with clients that I was not expecting to have for a year or two. That's wild. I now can just think of something and test it. I can have it done in 25 minutes. It's wild. Crazy.
Yeah. And that, like, what, man, I don't really know, like, where to take this without going over a long time or allotted, like, scheduled time. We'll have to do part two, but it's
Yeah,
the,
we can do a number two.
yeah, we'll have to do number two. But besides the macroeconomic consequences of like people, it's just the limits your creativity. I'll just put that book in there to that thread is the limit is your creativity. Now, like the new wrinkle in my brain, like I've always known this, but I think now, like talking to you, the new wrinkle in my brain is, and I'll just take it from my experience. I've gone through tutorial hell in a lot of different scenarios, but I think one of the worst tutorial hells is, oh, how to use Cloud Code and like courses on how to use Cloud Code. I feel like the fastest way to learn it, like all the people that like you that I've seen, like you need to just have a project to like work on. You find something that you like don't like spending time on and try to apply AI to it. Don't do a course, just try it out because the AI is like this free tutor that helps fill in the gaps. Like your experiences, the hard thing is going into the fog, just hoping that you're going to figure it out. That's like the hard thing of,
That's
I
the
get,
best part though. That's the
yeah.
part that I love seeing that incoming fog and going, hell yeah. I mean,
Uh-huh.
that's just, I'm extremely curious. I have to understand how things work. Like, I can't walk by a physical structure and not in my brain go, how does that happen? How does this happen? How does that
Mhm.
connect to this? Look under the hood. That's why I bought an old Land Rover truck, which is my main car right now because I want to understand how an engine works. So I've had to rebuild it. I've had to like weld motor mounts. I've had to replace brake systems. And I now understand so much more about that works. And that's what I like doing. But to
Yeah.
your point, yes, if you have a problem, like the way that I would approach it as a non-developer is I would set up an OpenClaw environment. If you don't know how to do it, Google it or Claude it or wherever you want to search for it. They will tell you how to do it.
There's no excuses anymore.
There are literally zero excuses.
Yeah.
Don't do it on your own computer. Go to Amazon Web Services and Google, how do I set up an EC2 instance? Do it there because it's cheap and it's easy and you can test it. And if you break it, who cares? And have that thing do the coding, because now the way that I look at this is actually how I looked at manufacturing internationally with Bottle Keeper. Having the ability and skill set to prompt, this is what prompt engineering is. There's like college degrees on it now, to prompt an AI that speaks a different language than you. Let's just be clear that it does. Having the ability to prompt that thing correctly in order to create the output, the exact output you're looking for, is a science in itself. That's like me going to a Chinese manufacturer that barely speaks English and trying to communicate in my English to their super broken English what the thing is we're trying to create. It's far better for me to go to somebody that speaks both English and Chinese to translate that information. And that's what OpenClaw does. That's what a system like OpenClaw does, these agentic systems, because I can speak to it in complete normal natural English and say, okay, that's done. Don't do this, make it yellow, make it purple, round the corners. And it then creates the prompt to prompt the AI. So it's now AI talking to AI, which means the output is dramatically better. It's so much more in line with what you're trying to create. So find a thing you want to solve, make it big, make it small, who cares? Just going through the process, you learn so much. And as you get through it, like again, your aperture just explodes with what the possibilities are.
Yeah. And I'm going to like anchor on that, the fact that like AI has gotten so good that it's better than you at prompting now. So like, there's no point. Like I think the wrong conclusion with a lot of like these people of like, oh, here's how to use Cursor, here's how to use OpenClaw, here's a tutorial, is it's like it's treating it like, oh, this is a hard skill that you could like stay relevant in. And I think it's not scary for me, it's not scary for you, because it's like we've always had the ability to like eat glass, and like you know, it used to be like you had to read like several books to even get like a basic concept of what questions to ask. And now you throw those books into Notebook LM, you have a good like action plan in one afternoon.
Yeah.
We're going to do like, actually, I think it's like, oh, this is the time for like the system thinkers, like people that just have the initiative to be like, I'll figure it out. It'll be fine. I'll figure it out. For other folks that maybe like are listening to this are nervous, it's the really like how you're going to be evaluated is just your judgment and creativity. And like how, I guess like before going to like the wrap up questions, and I'm sure like you talk to like a lot of community, like people in the community. I'm sure you mentor a lot of people. Like, how would you coach someone that's like worried of like, what skills do I need to learn to like not be irrelevant in this new economy? Like, how do you usually like coach them through the process of like reframing what's valuable now, like going into this?
I think you get a question like this fairly regularly, which is something to the effect of, what are you going to tell your kids to study in college? If college is even relevant. My kids are going to college, side note. And the answer is science and math, because it teaches you how to solve problems. I don't think problem solving, having the ability to solve problems, particularly complex problems, is a tremendously valuable skill, because you can apply it to anything, whether it's electrical, it's construction, it's development, it's literally anything. So in this world, what I'm finding myself coaching the people around me on, whether that's our small team at Pentane or even my incredible wife who's like learning how to use AI and interact with AI, mainly through open claw bots that I've created to help do things, is that you like there are almost no limits to what you can ask it to do. So when it does a thing that you don't like, you just tell it that you don't like it, and it will change it. And it's this never ending evolving thing, which is in itself a little bit of a skill that has to be learned, of re-asking it the questions and guiding it in the direction you want it to go. And then it remembers how to do that thing forever. And within a week or 2 weeks or a month or whatever that time frame is, depending on the volume you're using it, it becomes incredibly intelligent, which is both amazing and scary.
Yeah, it's like, are you training your overlord? But
Maybe.
I mean,
We
that
need to have
would,
guardrails in there, but yeah.
yeah, like I, it's almost like the liberal arts degree that got like poo-pooed like the last like 10 years. Like, you got a liberal arts degree, like don't complain to me that you're not making a lot of money. You know, I'm not like quoting any specific pundit in particular for that said that, but it's like liberal arts is making a comeback, which used to be like, and when you went to college back in the days of the founding fathers or like Oxford, it was like, hey, this is a place with all the resources you need. You choose your curriculum. And like when you went to Oxford, there was no like required course material. Like when you went to Oxford, you got to choose what you studied, and then you had access to all the facilities to go explore your curiosities. And we kind of lost that because of how hard there's just still so many hard technical skills up until this point that like needed to get done, that like you had to get put on rails and like lose your creative thinking to just like make a living and buy it, like, provide for your family. And now it's like, cool, I get to study math. Like, I never was interested in math. Now I'm like so interested in math because I'm like, oh, I need to like figure out how to abstract this. And there's nothing stopping me. I could just be like, oh, can you help me like what's an equation to like measure operational throughput? I don't have to read an ops book anymore. It's like it will tell me like what's the best practice. I am like stoked. It's just like use like Claude, that's your Oxford. Like go there and just be like, I don't know, like I've always been curious about this, and just try stuff out, and I think you'll be fine. But Adam, do you feel like there's anything that hasn't been said that should be said before we sign off?
I would say that this probably actually applies to any kind of company because it's the same math. I created a profit masterclass in order to try to frame. I did this as a self experiment, and it's turned out really well, and I'm about to redo it. But I created a profit masterclass in order to try to frame the way that I look at operating a profitable business, which includes keeping expenses low and what to do with them and ad budgets and all those things. That's free. Yeah, you can go to pentane.com and get that for free. Honestly, this whole next chapter of life for me is built around being helpful. So if there's anything I can do to be helpful, you can find me occasionally on LinkedIn, screaming and yelling. That's pretty much the only place I spend any time doing social stuff.
All right, Adam, thank you for that. I mean, I'm definitely going to check it out, and Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience, your expertise. I am super pumped right now. I'm going to go like test out an idea that I was thinking about that I didn't feel like doing. So like you made my afternoon productive. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and you have a good one.
I appreciate it. Look forward to round 2.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey listener, thanks again for listening to The Way of Product. As we power down today's session on the fusion of creativity and technology, let's solidify the energy you've gotten from our dialogue today. If you've gleaned insights or strategies that could turbocharge your projects, I have a small but powerful ask. Swing by the platform where you're hearing this and leave a review. Think of it as your digital high five to us. It's a fuel that propels this content to more creative technologists like you, amplifying the impact of the shared knowledge. So until our next interview, keep pioneering and pushing the envelope. Thanks again for lending your ears and your imagination to our community. Catch you on the next download.